Donald Trump's constant taunting of Iran has backfired as a major escalation event just took place. Iran has officially struck a port area in the United Arab Emirates, also after striking a South Korean ship as well as a UAE ship. Now, this follows Donald Trump saying that the United States was entering the Strait of Hormuz to escort ships. CENTCOM posted that 2 U.S.-based ships had been transiting the Strait of Hormuz. This followed Donald Trump's social media post saying that the U.S. Navy was going to head in and escort ships, to which some members of the United States military at a leadership level tried to pull those statements back and say, no, we're just going to be providing some guidance and logistical support to ships already in the Strait of Hormuz to help coordinate when the Strait of Hormuz opens. According to Iran, they saw certain moves that were happening in the Strait of Hormuz that signaled that the U.S. was working with the United Arab Emirates to bring some of these ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. And then the UAE took action by striking this port city, which I'll talk about in a second. It holds a lot of significance, and I'll explain why. And also it hit 2 ships that Iran said was trying to exit the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this specific port city that was just struck by Iran is the Fujairah port. You see it right here on fire. There's no dispute that this port was struck, and it's been the only remaining UAE oil export outlet, an endpoint of a pipeline that the UAE built to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. And so Iran striking this area so that you couldn't have the oil bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Here's additional photos of that port in Fujairah on fire. There's also a petrochemical plant there as well. So as I noted at the outset, the South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed to their news agency that a South Korean vessel was struck in the Strait of Hormuz. Its engine room on the port, the left side of the ship, on fire. Fortunately, no casualties there. Similarly, the United Arab Emirates confirmed that one of its ships associated with its ANDOC tankers, ANDOC, ANDOC, that's their big, state-run kind of oil company. Their tanker was hit as well. And Iran said that these ships were working with the U.S. in order to test Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran fired on those ships, blocked it. There are no ships leaving the Strait of Hormuz right now, and there's also no indication of any U.S. Navy activity in the Strait of Hormuz, but that port city of Fujairah is burning. Major escalation, and now we're going to see if the war with respect to open hostilities has resumed. As I mentioned, this followed Donald Trump making social media posts holding Uno cards, saying, I have all the cards, when the purpose of Uno is to have less cards. You had Donald Trump making social media posts about something called Project Freedom, which Trump described as U.S. Navy ships heading into the Strait of Hormuz. You had Professor Pape, very well-known professor here in the United States in international affairs. He said, look, Trump's announced escort of ships through Hormuz recalls the famous 1964 Tonkin Gulf incident, a manufactured pretext for the United States to massively escalate its military involvement in the Vietnam War, prepare for major escalation versus Iran. I think Iran interpreted it the same way. This morning, Donald Trump was making bizarre posts like this. In a galaxy that demands strength, America stands ready. This is the way. May the 4th be with you. Some additional notes. U.S. CENTCOM this morning posted the following, and this preceded Iran doing its strikes. But when U.S. CENTCOM speaks, that's authority. And it better speak with clarity, especially in situations of war and peace. So CENTCOM posted the following early this morning. U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyers are currently operating in the Arabian Gulf after transiting the Strait of Hormuz in support of Project Freedom. American forces are actively assisting efforts to restore transit for commercial shipping. As a first step, 2 U.S.-flagged merchant vessels have successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz and are safely headed on their journey. So maps and satellites don't lie. We were looking. Are we aware of any of these ships that went through the Strait of Hormuz? Were there ships that may have turned off their transponders that are now resurfacing outside the Strait of Hormuz? But CENTCOM was basically saying, we're heading in. And that's how Iran interpreted it, even though now we seem to know no ships have passed the Strait of Hormuz. We don't see any transponders turning off or back on or any activity like that at all. We do know that Iran is believed to have fired warning shots at U.S. naval ships that were getting close to the Strait of Hormuz, and apparently the U.S. naval ships didn't proceed any further. We do know what I said at the outset, that Iran did indeed strike the South Korean ship as well as the UAE ship. And here's what CENTCOM's posting again, and it pains me to say that CENTCOM has no credibility right now. I used to be like, look, Trump's a liar. Everything out of the White House is propaganda and BS. But look, CENTCOM is at least being responsible with its social media posts, and they're giving accurate. No, they're not. Here's what CENTCOM posted. Claim: Iranian state media claims that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps hit a U.S. warship with 2 missiles. Truth: no U.S. Navy ships have been struck. U.S. forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports. And by the way, Iran never said they hit 2 U.S. Navy ships, nor did they say the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps did it. What they did say is that their Army and Navy, which is different. We have to use the correct language. What's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps? What's the Iranian Army Navy? What they did said is that their Army Navy sent warning shots, which is true, not that we hit 2 U.S. naval ships. And then they said that they did indeed strike a South Korean ship and a UAE ship, which has been demonstrated to be accurate. Now the UAE is warning its citizens to hide and run and shelter in place and to find a safe place. This is the first time since the ceasefire began where a message like that has come out. By the way, we have the audio right here of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and this time declaring the Strait of Hormuz closed. Let's just show you what this audio says right here. Let's play this clip.
That the failure of the United States government to fulfill its commitment in the negotiations, the Islamic Republic of Iran declares the Strait of Hormuz completely closed again. No vessel of any type or nationality is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Any vessel intending to exit the Strait of Hormuz that cross the red line between Hengam Island and MeidasTouch port, and any vessel intending to enter the Strait of Hormuz that cross the red line between Khor Mubarak and Fujairah port will be met with a severe response from the IRGC Navy and will be destroyed. This is Sepah Navy. Out.
We also have footage from Iran firing its missiles today. This was released through Iran's state media. I'll show you this right here. You can see some of the missiles being fired. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was on the morning shows, and again, just spewing lie after lie after lie. So you have Bessent saying that, look, we're controlling the Strait of Hormuz. We're calling on China to come and help us. China and the U.S. are going to form a strong alliance in the Strait of Hormuz. Dude, what are you talking about? China's not your ally in this. I know that Donald Trump thinks that Xi Jinping loves him. Xi Jinping is laughing at all of you right now. Do you see what's actually happening? Watch what Besson says here. This is from this morning. Play this clip.
Attacks from Iran has closed the strait. We are reopening it. So I would urge the Chinese to join us in supporting this international operation. There are things moving through the UN that China and Russia have blocked. So, if they want to be good global citizens, join at the UN.
When this summit was originally scheduled, we were not at war with Iran, and now we are, and it was punted about a month's time. What would be your expectation from a summit in Beijing next week?
I think the expectation is it will be a chance for President Trump and Xi Jinping to exchange views in person. The strength of the relationship is the relationship between the two leaders. In Busan, South Korea, in October, we established a consensus, and the Vice Premier, He Lifeng, and I are charged with implementing that on the economic side. The Secretary Rubio and their Foreign Secretary, on the political side. So I think we would push forward the consensus from Korea and also keep the relationship stable. We've had great stability in the relationship. And again, that comes from the two leaders having great respect for each other.
If I could ask.
And then Besson's like, oh, the Iranians are believing their own propaganda. They're all in bunkers. They're all the leadership. They're in bunkers. They're not. No, they're not. They're not in bunkers. Okay. They're out and about. We see them. We know who they are. I know who their parliament leader. I know their leadership structure around the Ayatollah. I know their foreign minister. I know their negotiating team. Frankly, I see them more than Trump regime officials. In official capacities, I see the Trump regime officials DJing weddings or going golfing. But anyway, here's what he says. Play it.
Yeah, so let's level set here. I think the Iranians are starting to believe their own propaganda. And just to be clear, the leadership is hunkered down in bunkers all over the country. And I don't think they know what's going on. But what is going on is that they're reduced. Their navy is not a navy anymore. It's a band of pirates. They are trying to cut off international freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. is opening that up. This is a humanitarian effort.
And this was more from Besson this morning saying, we've got control. We control everything right here.
Let's level set here. I think the Iranians are starting to believe their own propaganda. And just to be clear, the leadership is hunkered down in bunkers all over the country. And I don't think they know what's going on. But what is going on is that they're reduced. Their navy is not a navy anymore. It's a band of pirates. They are trying to cut off international freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. is opening that up. This is a humanitarian effort. I can tell you, 2 weeks ago was IMF World Bank Week in Washington, and I had numerous countries come up to me, some of the poorest, some of the most vulnerable, and ask us to do this because it's not only energy that's in there, it's fertilizer, it's food transport, it's LPG for the more than the billion plus people in India use to cook. So we are saying the Iranians do not have control of the strait. We have absolute control of the strait. We have blockaded the ships going into or out of Iranian ports. Their economy is in free fall. And everyone says they have the high tolerance for pain. Well, their soldiers will not have a high tolerance for not getting paid.
Okay, here I think is a strong analysis of what actually is going down as well. We heard from Hamradriza Azizi, a scholar in this area, in Middle East studies. He explains Iran's announcement of an expanded control envelope in the Strait of Hormuz, coupled with strikes on oil facilities in Fujairah and strikes on oil tankers, points to a deliberate escalation toward the United Arab Emirates oil bypass routes. The objective is to keep alternative export channels at risk, sustained elevated oil prices, and block any perception of normalization. In other words, the message is that Donald Trump's mission in the Strait will not be cost-free. Instead, it will generate greater complexity and sustain pressure on the energy market. So while Donald Trump shoots from the hip, quite literally, making up contradictory statements every day, Iran's plan is, if you are indeed doing ship escorts, or if that's your intention, we are going to slap you down the moment you do that. You make any move, we're going to show you in a escalatory way how we can escalate this further and further and further. So your choices remain the same, Donald. You do a deal with us where we control the Strait of Hormuz and we can figure out all of the other terms, but we control the Strait of Hormuz. Or don't do a deal with us. Try your hand at a ground invasion, restart the war, have a global depression, crash everything, and we'll see how that goes and cost tens of thousands of American soldiers their lives. It's your choice. If you don't want to negotiate, invade. If you don't want to invade, negotiate. But you're going to make these weird social media posts that create escalatory ambiguity. Well, we're going to demonstrate what the escalator ladder looks like. That's what this is all about. Make sure you hit subscribe. We need to get to 7 million subscribers, folks. If the open hostilities of this war begins, and it looks like it's very close to happening, you know the importance of this network getting out the truth. So please hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million. Thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.